A lot of people are sleeping on the Golden State Warriors. And after acquiring Jimmy Butler, I'll be the first to tell you that this team has the potential to be scary. Let's talk about it. Before we get started, if you could do me a huge favor and drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future NBA and other sports content. So the Golden State Warriors are an interesting team to me. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm actually a little bit fascinated by them, especially ever since they acquired Jimmy Butler. And there's a few reasons behind this, but before we get into that, let's take a little bit of a deeper look at the Golden State Warriors as a team. Over the past 5 games, they're sitting at 4-1. They have an offensive rating of 118.5 and a defensive rating of 106 flat, with a net rating of 12.5. That's not bad for a team that's currently sitting at the 9th seed and only 3 games above 500. Okay, but they're currently on a 3-game win streak. Their most recent game was against the Dallas Mavericks, who they absolutely just torched, 126-102. Now, granted, the Mavericks are currently without Anthony Davis, without Derek Lively, without Daniel Gafford, so they're definitely missing some key pieces. But with that being said, before the Mavericks lost to the Warriors, they also had won 3 straight games and actually won 5 out of their last 6 games. So they were on a pretty good run, and Kyrie Irving has been on a tear. So yes, the Mavericks, they're not whole right now, but at the same time, I'm not going to overlook the fact that the Warriors just beat a team that was on a pretty good run, because they still have some good players despite missing the majority of their front court. But regardless, the point is I've been paying attention to the Golden State Warriors. And since Jimmy Butler has joined, he's had an interesting effect on their gameplay and on their success as a whole. Jimmy Butler played his first game with Golden State on February 8th. And since then, let's take a look at Steph Curry, for example. Since being Jimmy Butler's teammate, Steph Curry has averaged 30 points per game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and he's shooting 46% from the field and 38% from 3. Now, 38% is a little low from beyond the arc from what we're used to seeing from Steph, but at the same time, that's on almost 14 attempts. So that's actually really good shooting if you think about it. And we saw kind of Steph Curry go through this roller coaster effect throughout the season. The Warriors were going through a tough time. They started off the season really hot. Then they just got ice cold. They went through some struggles. They dropped a lot of games. And there was this whole talk and narrative about how Steph Curry and Draymond and some of the other veterans on the team were pretty much at a general understanding that, you know what, this is like a turning page, right? It's not so much about investing into a team that can win or a team that can win a championship. I think the infamous quote that was being thrown around the internet was, you know, we don't want the Warriors to mortgage their future just to try to win a championship now. That was the famous quote. But since then, a lot has changed because they, again, acquired Jimmy Butler. And since joining Golden State, he's averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, and that's on 47% from the field, only 10% from 3. Granted, that's on less than 2 attempts, but either way, Jimmy Butler was never really known as a great 3-point shooter. And that kind of segues into one of the biggest reasons why I think a lot of people are sleeping on this trade. So clearly his production has gone up since leaving Miami, right? Miami, the whole thing was it was done, right? The way that whole situation played out, you can kind of put the blame on both. The organization in Miami definitely didn't handle the situation well. Jimmy Butler certainly could have handled that situation better. But I think we could all agree that the fact that they decided to part ways was ultimately the best decision. His time was up in Miami. In Jimmy Butler's defense, though, I think the organization could have done a much better job of surrounding him with more talent to compete with some of the other elite teams in the league to give him a better chance to compete for a championship. But that story's done. He's playing for the Warriors now. The biggest reason that, in my opinion, that people are sleeping on this trade is because it's not necessarily what we're used to seeing in terms of fit from the Golden State franchise. For the past decade or so, we're used to seeing Steph, we're used to seeing Klay Thompson, we're used to seeing Kevin Durant, etc. And what all these major players have in common is that they're all just great shooters. Not just shooters, but movement shooters. They fit very well into the system that's been developed that basically it started with Mark Jackson. I have to throw that out there, right? Mark Jackson, I think, kicked this whole thing off. But it started with the Splash Brothers, 2 of the best shooters the NBA has ever seen. They started to wove in a guy like Kevin Durant, who just hit the ground running with them because, again, he fit perfectly into that system. The Warriors, they essentially run a variation of the motion offense, right? The motion offense, it just has a lot of movement, screen away, just trying to confuse the defense, drawing them out of position to get looks for the shooters. We don't really see that a lot from Jimmy Butler. That's not really his style of play. He doesn't move a ton off the ball the way someone like a Steph or a Clay would normally do. But why does it fit now? Or why does it seem to be working now? What's the difference? Well, I'll tell you. The Warriors don't have a guy like Klay Thompson anymore. They don't have that Kevin Durant. They essentially have Steph Curry. They have some other guys who can shoot, but not to that extent. So what they're doing is they're using Jimmy Butler to kind of, in a sense, offset what Steph Curry has to offer. It basically it creates a much more versatile offense. You have Steph Curry and what he does, right? He's one of the best conditioned athletes in the NBA. He's constantly moving. He draws a ton of attention. And what that allows Jimmy Butler to do is to use his IQ. He's a very smart basketball player, and to pick his spots and know when to take advantage of his strengths, which is overpowering smaller guards. He can put them down in the post. He can attack open spaces. He can attack the bucket. And he's a really good facilitator as well. So even if he doesn't get a good look at a three, he can pump fake, drive and dish out, finish at the rim, whatever he can do. So there's a pretty good balance there. Because Steph Curry with the ball, he does what he does. He has a great handle. He can create his own space. And a one-on-one matchup with Steph Curry is never ideal. So typically he can draw two players. Jimmy Butler, he's kind of working on that part of his game to where he can start to hit the open three. But even then, he's still a good mid-range shooter. He's got a good post game, so he's going to find his buckets. That leaves opportunities for backdoor cuts, alley-oops at the rim. Even sometimes you can catch him in a dunker spot because, again, the Warriors, they're a smaller team. They're not really huge. They play small ball. So this provides a really nice balance that yet we are not used to seeing but can still be very effective. Obviously, Draymond Green, when he's facilitating, he still does what he does. He's a good defender, but he is more or less a point forward. So when you have Draymond bringing the ball up the court, you got Steph Curry running around, coming off screens, double drags. He's drawing a lot of attention. And again, that still leaves a lot of open space for somebody like Jimmy Butler to operate. There was an interview that Jimmy Butler did, and he happened to mention that he was talking to to Steve Kerr. And he said, listen, you don't have to draw me up any plays. Just keep doing what you're doing. I will find my spots. I'll find my opportunities to score. And he's absolutely right. He's 100% right because he has a high enough IQ to understand that he will fit in where he needs to fit in. Whether that's setting good picks, trying to free up Steph Curry, rolling to the basket so he can kind of work that paint/mid-range game, elbows, posting up, giving goals between him and Steph. He's a good facilitator. He can drive and dish, draw on the defense, hit a spot-up shooter at the corner, and, of course, what he can offer on the defensive end as well. We all know that peak Jimmy is one of the best two-way players the league has to offer. So if he's being a nuisance on defense, he's playing the passing lanes or even just straight up one-on-one, if he's forcing turnovers, he is really good at just initiating the break and kind of getting down court and trying to score in transition, which is also another effective part of scoring for the Warriors. Once they get the ball, they're moving. Draymond Green's pushing. Jimmy Butler's pushing. Steph Curry's pushing. Kuminga's pushing. They play small ball. They're young. They're quick. They're fast. So they get up and down the court in a blur. These are all the things that Jimmy Butler has to offer. And right now, he's in a really good mindset. It seems like he's in a franchise where he feels appreciated. He feels wanted. And you can see it in his gameplay. He's fitting in really well. And I really do think a lot of people are sleeping on this. We're going to see how it plays out. The biggest concern for the Warriors is to make sure that they kind of stay in a good place to either make the play-in or make the playoffs. Because once they do, playoff Jimmy and Steph, that's going to be a problem for anyone. I don't care who they're matched up against. A healthy Jimmy Butler and a healthy Steph Curry in a playoff series is not going to be fun. It's not going to be a fun matchup. And I, for one, am excited to see what they're going to be able to do. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Do you think Jimmy Butler was a good pickup, bad pickup? Do you think like I do? Do you think this is a trade that a lot of people are sleeping on? Or do you think it's just going to kind of fizzle out? It's just not a good fit. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and drop a like. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you on the next video. Here.